I wanted to bring today's episode to the podcast talking all about fertility smoothies. This fertility smoothie is good for your egg health. Plus, we're going to be talking about one that is good for sperm health. Excited for you to listen to today's episode. So many people are doing smoothies every day, but we're putting in the wrong ingredients. This is a fertility smoothie that's going to actually help improve your fertility. Excited for you to listen to this episode. Let's go. Hey, Anna, excited to have you back on the podcast.
Sarah, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's been a while. This podcast has been going on for almost almost 6 years, and you were like from the very beginning. You were on the pod. I don't know what episode it was, but like the first couple, I
Yeah.
think, and you're on there. So here we are again, and obviously we've kept in contact over the years, and we work together a lot. So I'm excited to have you back on the podcast.
Well, I'm excited to chat with you and have me on the podcast whenever you'd like to chat. I'd be
You
happy
go.
to come on again. We don't
Yeah,
need to
that's
wait
right.
5 years
No kidding.
in
No kidding.
between recordings.
Awesome. So today, let's just do a little refresher action for people, kind of who are new to you. Kind of what led you to this journey, and why are you doing this work?
Yeah, great. Thanks. So my name is Anna Rapp, and my husband and I started trying to get pregnant when I was about 30, and it wasn't easy. And I experienced a number of early miscarriages. Finally got to finally got the OB to send me to the RE, and they did the workup, and the workup was it was bad. It was very high FSH, I think 35. My first AMH was undetectable. And then I remember the phone call with the doctor calling me, and she's like, "So we think there might be something wrong with this test. Can you come and have your blood drawn?" Well, there was nothing wrong with that test. And so anyway, I was just out of whack, and I would have, very low antral follicle counts, sometimes just one. So the doctors were like, "Sorry, you have to do donor eggs. There's just no other way." And I was pretty depressed, and we took a break from trying to conceive. And then I just decided, I was like, before we spend money on everything, I really didn't want to do IVF or donor eggs. I wanted to get pregnant naturally. I was like, before we even think about spending all this money, why don't I just do everything? Why don't I just completely all in? I'm just going to read everything there was. Back then, there weren't like fertility coaches, or if there were, I couldn't find them on the internet. So I just read all the books. I, found all the specialists I could, saw the acupuncturist. I just read and read and read and read. And then I just decided I was just going to do it all the mind body work, all the diet stuff, all the supplements. I was just going to completely commit for an egg cycle, 90 days. It starts with the egg came out like right before I decided to do this. So I had some data in my pocket for the diet, and I just went crazy with it, and it worked. So I brought my FSH down. I got pregnant naturally in 3 months. It was beautiful. And then 2 years later, hadn't been living as clean, had a toddler. My hormones were not so great again. And then I did it again. And that time it took like 2 months. I just, went all in again. So, and that time my FSH actually got into the normal zone. The month I got pregnant, my FSH was 9. It was the first time in my life I ever had a normal FSH test. But I'm so passionate about this, and so passionate about fertility, and about like spreading the good news to other women that there are ways, to improve your fertility naturally, and to get pregnant, even when the doctors say, it's not going to happen. And so I started a blog. I like couldn't sleep at night. When my son was born, I had all this stuff in my head. I was like, I have to tell the world. I have to tell the world. People have to know. And so I just started writing it all on the internet. And I'm a recovering type A, but I am a type A, which means that whenever I research anything, I research it really in depth. So when I was like, okay, I think I'm going to do a fertility smoothie, I just like went crazy, researching it to make sure I wasn't doing it wrong, and make sure I was doing the very best fertility smoothie possible. Or whatever it is on the blog, you'll find that my articles are really, they're a bit dense, but I just, I like to have, cross all my T's and dot all my I's. Was that too much, Sarah? I can just talk and talk.
No, it's all good. Yeah. Like to make a mommy's blog, it's awesome. It's not fluff. There's like tangible things and action. It's all about taking action, right? So we got a list of 76 things that I did, which could seem a little bit overwhelming, but you each
Yeah.
pick off each one, right? So basically the whole thing with this low elimination, high FSH, that we just myopically focus in on those numbers, think there's nothing else to do. And then we look at our health and lo and behold, we were just talking about your homeschooling, your son's 8. So, years ago, none of this stuff was even around, right? You're trying to dig it up yourself. And now I still think obviously in people stuck in conventional medicine, if you're here listening to this podcast, looking at things completely differently, but if we're over in conventional medicine, we're still not told about it. You ask your REI, are you, what's going on there? Can I make any diet and lifestyle change? It doesn't matter. And they're going to tell you, it's, you can do it if you want, but it's not necessary. But meanwhile, it's absolutely necessary to look at your diet and lifestyle and your health. It's key.
The RE I was going to when I was trying for my second for my daughter. And I was like knee deep in the blog, was knee deep in fertility diet research. And I was getting like all the new research on the macros. And I was emailing with different IVF research specialists about their research, like their unpublished research, like getting the details on their studies. And I was in the meeting with her and she was like, don't you want to try a little Clomid? And I was like, no. And I said, is there a fertility diet I should be following? And she said, oh no, there's just really nothing that we have any proof works. And like my brain wanted to explode. I'm like, no, we literally know. Like they're presenting at conferences about it. There is.
Yeah.
But I still have readers today email me and say, like, I'm so angry. My clinic didn't tell me any of this. They said there were no supplements that were proven to help with anything, which we just know is not the case. And it's so frustrating.
Yeah, we're just asking the wrong person, right? That's why you need to have a team. You have the, you have the REI, the OBGYN, but also, the nutrition practitioner, your mindset coach, but really
maybe you're a naturopath, maybe a functional medicine doctor.
Yeah. And you're in the center because a lot of times we're like, whoop, right over to the REI and we're like, and they tell us and we panic and we think we need to rush to IVF, which is counterintuitive to bring in your baby. And we need to donor eggs. Yeah. So we're going to get into fertility smoothies. So this is one where I think there's a lot of information out there about smoothies. Yeah. And we're going to be talking about, and some of the stuff is some generalized recommendations, right? But it's a good base to start to have a smoothie and this one that we're going to be talking about is packed full of nutrients and foods that are going to be helping to improve your hormones. And so I guess we'll talk about some of the things that, what are some of the problems that you see with a lot of fertility smoothie recipes? What's going on there?
So a lot of the fertility smoothie recipes, and it's gotten better over the years. But there's just a lot of recipes, and it used to be all the recipes on the internet they're like, start with a banana, a bunch of skim milk, and then throw in a bunch of raw spinach, right? And maybe they'd say in some blueberries and some walnuts or something like that. And I mean, it's just like completely wrong. Right? It's probably fine if you're like 20 years old and super healthy. It probably doesn't matter. It's great for you to get the extra spinach. But for those of us struggling with infertility, it's just completely wrong. And it just drove me nuts. And so I decided to really, dig into how to make a fertility smoothie friendly for fertility, friendly for egg health, and how to really make it nutrient dense. Like, why even do a fertility smoothie? Like, you can get your fertility diet from foods. It's just kind of hard. So it's hard to meet so for me, I was trying to get 2 to 4 servings of leafy greens, which I know is a little intense, but that's a lot to eat. So if you don't have one or two of those servings in your smoothie, you're eating a lot of leafy greens. For me, a lot of the fertility diet was really a love affair with leafy greens, just like making this part of my life. And the other is that we have research about protein that says you really need a pretty high protein counts to maximize your egg health and to also balance out your insulin levels, right? So you're not sugar crashing during the day. And it's really hard to hit those protein levels unless you're eating like 4 servings of meat, like 3 servings of meat and a snack. And so a protein smoothie, adding protein to a smoothie via powders, via whole food protein additions is just a great way to get those nutrients that you need. So that's my spiel for why I think everyone should be doing a fertility smoothie. I think it just really helps with the diet to meet your greens and your protein. Do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, like for years, like many of us were doing, like we start the day off with a muffin or with a bagel or with like, like those grab and go granola bars, all that kind of stuff. And so first of all, there's gluten. And we see a theme with, low animation, high
Yeah.
VSH with non-celiac gluten sensitivity. And second of all, you wonder why, like mid morning, you're starving because your blood sugar's on this roller coaster and you're not getting the fats and the protein to keep you satiated. That's going to keep your blood sugar steady. And we talk about this all the time in our clinical mastermind, where like blood sugar issues that's impacting menstruation, impacting ovulation, and it's a huge it's wreaking havoc on the body. So, and many times with smoothies, we're loading up with all the fruit, bananas and the
Yeah,
pineapple.
so it just makes it worse. If your
Right.
fertility, if your smoothie is
Right.
just packed with fruits, then you're absolutely just making it worse. So
Yeah. So let's talk about let's talk about what are we going to add to our smoothie. And I think this is a great time to talk about this too, as we roll into September, kind of a lot of times it's like a new year for us, and sort of we've been doing the enjoying ourselves in the summer, and now it's like time to mix up our routine a little bit. And I think I'm going to do this again because my smoothie has just been a disaster. Like, I don't know. I've been doing eggs and bacon kind of in the beginning. And my smoothie has just been boring. And yeah, I'm excited to actually do this myself. So let's
yeah,
look at some of the greens and things we can add to our smoothie, and
yeah,
what are we doing?
absolutely. Okay, so like in terms of, let's start with greens because I think greens are the most important thing. And like some of the greens that are just, I'm just gonna rattle off some of them that are like super great for fertility. You've got like lettuce, especially romaine lettuce, which is more nutrient dense, kale, spinach, collards, watercress, arugula, cabbage, beet green, chard, dandelion greens. Like all of these are just like super great for fertility, going to help you have a nice sperm friendly alkaline environment. Um, and I wanted to mention, a lot of people, when they start hearing all these greens, they're like, well, I'm just going to juice. Like, forget smoothies. I'm just going to juice. And juicing is cool. And juicing is really cool if you can afford a nice expensive juicer and you just do greens. But the problem with juicing is that sometimes it can make your sugars too high. So you can wind up with just like a bunch of greens and a little bit of apple, and you can wind up with, way more sugar. And then you're also not adding your protein and your fats and your other things that are going to be in the smoothie. Do you have anything to add there,
Yeah, I
Sarah?
was on a juicing kick for many years, and we were juicing celery like so many
Oh,
people,
yeah.
doing the medical medium kind of thing, and we did that for about a year or so. Like it was decent, but I like this is not really where we'd have people go if they're starting to juice with celery. And then also, yeah, we were doing the greens with some apple, and I do like my green drink little like not as sweet. I know sometimes people are like the
Um,
pineapple and the apple, and then I'm like, that's just drinking a pile of sugar. And
this
so
is
I
Wicked
think,
Burgers. It's delicious.
yeah. And then the freaking, the juicer was cleaning it out. And
Oh,
then it just was
it's so much
a
work.
mess.
It's
And I
so
had all
much
the
work. Yeah.
pulp. I was giving some of the pulp to the dog. And anyways, I haven't done it in years. And,
Yeah. It's
but yeah,
expensive too.
definitely. Yeah, exactly. Expensive.
Yeah.
All that, like that celery, when we were bringing it, like we'd be like going to the grocery store and because you want to get organic and, non-GMO. So it's like bags and bags of celery. And
So
anyways,
much
yeah.
work. I did that for 1 week and my gut was not happy. So I stopped the celery juicing.
Right,
That
right.
was done for me. Um, okay, so sort of digging into greens here. So one of the things you want to do is you want to make sure to rotate your greens in your smoothie. So you do not want to be doing a fertility smoothie every day for a year and spinach every day or kale every day. That is just not healthy for your body. Like you do not want to be doing one thing every day. Some of them are more hard on your body than others. Like lettuce every day is probably okay. It's just not very exciting, right? But like the kale, when we have the cruciferous vegetables, when we have the vegetables that are high in oxalic acid, you can hurt your body by doing this every day. It can hurt your thyroid. It can lead to medical problems. There are stories of women who had massive amounts of kale every day and got sick. So it's really important to rotate different greens. And it's kind of nice to do it seasonally. So like in the spring, I like to collect the young dandelion greens from my yard and do that as my green. And in the summer, I like to do fresh romaine. In the fall and the winter, I often do the other, like more like I'll even put broccoli or I'll do spinach or I'll kale, but I'll change it up. And do you want to add anything to that before I
Yeah,
keep
I just
talking
think
about
it
greens?
is, Yeah, we're going to talk about this in a minute too, because we see like 100% across the board here with FSH and AMH, something going on with the thyroid, and then some of those cruciferous vegetables are contraindicated. So we're going to give you a little tip here how you can improve that, because eating some of that raw kale, if you've got a thyroid issue, is just not a good idea. And a lot of the stuff where we think it's healthy, but Dave Asprey, the bulletproof diet, now he's changed to anyways, he's got a massive podcast and he's just literally he's always making these funny memes about kale. We think it's a superfood, but like really also it can taste kind of, if you massage it with olive oil and things like that, it tastes good. But raw kale by itself, I
never do raw kale.
Lover.
That was like a big health food kick, but it's bad for you. I mean, it's better than nothing, right? It's better than zero leafy greens. But so one of the things you can do to both reduce the effect on your thyroid and reduce the oxalic acid in other greens is you can steam your greens. And another big benefit, and I know that sounds crazy, I'm going to explain how to make it work so it's not super gross. And you don't have to steam, there are some things you don't have to steam, like you don't have to steam lettuce, right? But you don't have to steam sprouts if you're putting sprouts in. But things like kale, things like cabbage, things like broccoli, don't put that stuff raw. Spinach, don't put it raw in your smoothie. If you're going to put it in, steam it. Another reason to do it is that if you've gone to an acupuncturist, and if you haven't, I hope you do, because acupuncture is just an amazing way to boost fertility. I have a blog post, I'll send it to you, that's about finding a really good acupuncturist, because I went through a few and I really found that traditional Chinese medicine was the best for me. And they'll give you a diagnosis. And for some diagnoses, they will say, do not eat raw vegetables. Like you cannot handle raw vegetables. Your body, your gut cannot handle raw vegetables because all of your energy is going to go to digesting those. And you need all your energy going to your eggs, making healthy eggs, your ovaries and your uterus. And that was certainly the case for me. So some diagnoses like cold uterus, kidney yang deficiency, I had both of those, or damp conditions. You really don't want raw greens, but you need a bunch of greens for fertility. So that's where we come to steaming. So you can just lightly steam greens. Like I will grab, like we usually cook up a big batch of steamed broccoli for the week. So I will just throw in, a couple bits of steamed broccoli if they're in the fridge. One thing I did when I was trying to save money is I would get like those big freezer bags of like spinach and kale, and I would steam a bunch of them. And then I would refreeze it. I know it sounds crazy, lightly steam it and then refreeze it. You could freeze it into the little ice cubes trays so that you have like a serving or, a couple servings, and then you can just throw those into your smoothie so they're ready to go. So that's sort of a way to, make it more efficient, make it less work. But I also would just steam them, put them in a Pyrex in the fridge and take a handful and throw in the smoothie. Like, at some point.
How long is that good in the fridge for? Like a couple days? Like, how would you say? Could you do?
Don't quote me. I have not been on the USDA website, but I would, I would keep it in there for 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
So it's, it lasts longer than meat or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that's a little intense. You can already tell that the smoothie is going to taste different than other smoothies you've had. But if you're like me, you actually really grow to like it. Like it feels like this nutrient dense magic for your body, like I am making this and I can imagine the energy going right to my eggs, right to my ovaries, right to my womb. It can be really a great way to just think about. And it also, the fertility diet, you can kind of get caught up on, I can't have that, I can't have gluten, I can't have dairy, I can't have sugar. But instead, it isn't about that. It shouldn't be about that. It should be about getting all the nutrients. It should be like, have I had enough fat today? Have I had enough nuts and seeds today? Like, have I had enough fertility superfoods? Like and this is just a great way. So I just had to throw that in about mindset after the steaming of the greens.
No, yeah, that's key, right? Because to be able to visualize how this is working. And I know for me, I just will crave vegetables. The more you have, the more you'll want them. And you're like, how did I survive with you're supposed to have 13 a day. I know my mom was like, I know exactly. My mom she's like plant-based vegan for many years. She goes to bed and she's like, I count my vegetables. I'm like making fun of her, but yeah, 13. And when you think about it, yeah that is a lot, because many of us are just having a salad with a radish or a cucumber, maybe a bean and a sweet potato or something, and then that's only 5. So,
and you saw that new research on gut health, and that like we have the most diverse microbiomes when we've eaten the larger amounts diversified plant food. So like if you have like 40 plus different plant foods a week, you get like more diversified. So this is just another way to like add more different
Yeah.
plant.
Yeah. We're always saying eat the rainbow. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to jump on. So another one for mindset. So you really have to limit your sugars. Like we were talking about with fruit, you don't want it to be sugar crashing from your smoothie. Your smoothie should be, so like one of the best fruits for fertility is berries, right? They're like so high in antioxidants, they're so high in nutrients, but they're low in sugars. So I always did berries, and I would rotate it also, right? Like sometimes it would just be blueberries, sometimes it would be a mix, sometimes it would be both. So sometimes I would do like a quarter or a half of a small green apple. Like if I needed something a little bit sweeter, I would add a little bit of something else in. But don't throw dates in, don't throw banana in. And like sometimes if my husband had like a thing of pineapple in the fridge, I might take one piece of it and put it in, right? And you can still taste it and it's still sweet, but I'm not putting in a half a cup of it. Like there's a difference in amount. You can regulate amounts and have a little bit. And have the taste in there and have the different plant food in there, but not go crazy with your sugars. And also just watch out. So like don't add, oh my gosh, if you see a fertility smoothie recipe that's like, then add honey or then add maple syrup, you need to run away. That is bad news. You do not need that. Not need that at all. And then also watch out in your protein powders that you're not, I will talk about protein powders later. I'm very OCD about what I put in my smoothies and what I recommend, but I know a lot of people have preferences. Just watch out, like look in your ingredients and make sure there's nothing weird in there and no weird sweeteners hidden in there.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, it is the honey and the maple syrup, and then you go down a stevia rabbit hole, which then the
That's
stevia
just weird.
if it's not organic. And I personally, stevia to me leaves a bad aftertaste.
I hate the way it tastes. Yeah.
I don't like it either. And so yeah, like there are some things you can add, but you have to look at your blood sugar. So this is personalized too, right? And so if you're adding that honey, because I've gone down that where I'm like, ooh, let's get this big heap of honey and big. I remember in the beginning I was doing big cups of maple syrup, was doing all this baking, right? So
oh yeah, like paleo baking, yeah. And I mean, I think one of the nice things to say is if you're like what I did is if you're you're really strict and you really stick to this for 3, 4, or 5 months, whatever you need to get that good egg health and get pregnant. And then you're in your first trimester of pregnancy because you're going to get there, right? You're going to be pregnant with your baby and maybe you have a little morning sickness. Like add some honey to your smoothie then. Add some fruit to your smoothie then. Indulge in a little bit of paleo baking, like it doesn't have to be. And for me, like I know for Sarah's clients, it might be totally different, but I always told myself that there was a limit. I was only going to do this for 4 months. And if I wasn't pregnant, I was going to take a break and I was going to eat a banana. Like I know that it's different, like for other people who are on a longer course, but I could do anything for 3 or 4 months. So then I didn't have a mindset issue. I was like, I can do this.
Yeah, because if you're like, months. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. No, like any new change, right? You got to rip the Band-Aid off, commit, and know why you're set your intention and why you're doing it. We all know why, but it is, and then is to notice all the how you start to feel, because if you're like, we don't know how poorly we feel until we feel awesome, and so bringing in all these different veggies and minimal berries and things like that, then you should start your blood sugar. Maybe you're not getting that. Maybe your sleep starts to improve. You're not having that that nausea that as you're getting hangry. Your the sugar cravings start to go away, so you're not like snacking at night. And just it sets you up for the whole day.
Because if you're gonna be happier, you're healthier, your brain will be clearer. Like your skin's going to clear up. I lost weight. My blood pressure went down. Like all of a sudden you're going to feel so great. And then so I still live this way most of the time. Right. Because I know it makes me feel better. Even though I'm not trying to conceive. So, okay. I feel like we're like talking about fertility smoothies, but we're also trying to convince people. We're like, come on.
Dark side. Yeah. Okay. Frozen. So yeah. What do you got?
Okay. So this is, a little bit intense, but a lot of smoothies incorporate frozen material, right? So they'll be like, throw in some ice, throw in frozen berries, throw in frozen spinach. Frozen stuff does taste better. Smoothies taste better when they're cold. There is, in traditional Chinese medicine, there is a recommendation to avoid cold foods when trying to conceive. Pretty much across the board, but especially if you have diagnoses of kidney yang deficiency, spleen qi deficiency, blood stasis, or cold uterus, which I had like 3 of those. So the idea is that cold foods can chill the uterus, making it an unwelcome place for the embryo to implant. The other idea is that your body has to work so hard to warm up the icy cold stuff in your stomach that it's taking energy away from your reproductive organs. Either way, do I think this is like as hard a fast and rule as avoiding sugars? No, I don't. And if the only way you can drink it is frozen, whatever, man. But for me, I was very serious about this one. So I tried whenever I could to make my smoothies from either room temperature or just refrigerator temperature ingredients. And when I did have frozen ingredients, and sometimes I would like batch smoothies into mason jars and then just like take them to work in the morning and they would like defrost, on the way to work. What I would do is I would drink some of it, hold it in my mouth until it warmed up, and then swallowed it. That's how intense I was.
It is, you know what? And I like when it's right now we're recording this, we're having a small heat wave. It's like 90 degrees. And I will throw some ice cubes in my water. But typically my water is room temperature. I don't like it ice cold. I find it very like jarring. Like especially if it's cold outside, I'm gonna have ice cold water. I'm gonna be in a blanket. I'm just gonna be cold. And it makes me contract and that. So our thing is, to do room temperature and all this frozen stuff. It just, you have to see how your body feels with it, right? Too, depending on what climate you're in, maybe you need to have some colder things because your body's hot. And doing that's why doing that raw vegan when you're in like Canada in the north in the middle of winter
doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense at all.
Have some bone broth, have some chicken,
right.
And then so also if you don't have a Chinese medicine diagnosis, again, I think you should get yourself to an acupuncturist. But if you haven't, it's pretty simple to tell if you might be in one of these diagnoses. Like if you always have cold hands and cold feet, you probably shouldn't be drinking ice cold smoothies or ice cold food. If you are like stressed and hot and red in the face, like a Wall Street banker, then you might be okay with some ice cold food, right? Like, I mean, you want to talk to your acupuncturist about it, but there are different types that can tolerate different things. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and if you got cold hands and cold feet, that potentially can be something going on with your thyroid, which we see all the time. So get your thyroid looked at. There's lots of episodes that we've talked about in the podcast about that. So let's talk about protein, which I think so many women and men get wrong. We're not eating enough.
Yeah, I mean, like I've done all this research and I'm still telling my husband he has to eat more protein. I'm like, you're still not getting enough protein. Yeah. And I think one of the hard parts is that a lot of us, we want to be good to the environment. We want to be good to the planet. We've read the research about like heart health and we want to eat as plant-based as we can, right? And a lot of the early fertility research was talking about that too, about more plant-based, but it's just really hard to get the protein you need on a plant-based diet. And what you can do, so the way I thought about it was, I need to eat tons and tons of plants. I need to eat the rainbow. I need to eat tons and tons of greens, but I also have to hit my protein, right? So that means meat, fish, eggs. So I have a great post. My post is great. No, but I have a really great post, a research post on macros for fertility, like different fertility macro levels. Do you have a podcast on that, Sarah?
No, I don't know.
You should have either me or you should have one of the doctors on who did that research. That would be really cool. Yeah. So basically, what they did is they did research with women in IVF and they studied their egg quality. And when their protein levels, when they got up to 30% of their diet being protein, their egg quality just like tripled, right? And then like up to 35%, it improved even more. So you just want a much larger, most people are eating about 10% protein in their diet. So it's something you really have to work at. I never actually tracked calories, but I did track macros because I was really trying hard to get enough protein and enough fat. So for me, I'm all about whole foods. I'm all about adding whole food protein to your smoothie. So there's lots of ways to do that. You can do seeds, you can do nuts, you can do nut butters, you can do quinoa. Obviously tailored to your own needs. Like if you can't do certain, like if nuts don't work for you, do the seeds if whatever doesn't work for you. And I have on my blog post about fertility smoothies, I have, like different foods and how much grams of protein you get. But I really think that adding a protein powder is pretty important for hitting your protein levels. And then we come to the whole problem of protein powders, which really deserves its own podcast. But I'm just going to jump into it really quick. So a number of protein powders are potentially problematic for fertility. So like soy and pea, we don't have great evidence saying that soy protein and pea protein are bad for fertility, but we also don't have evidence saying that they're okay for fertility. So for me, out of an abundance of caution, I say to avoid both. What do you say, Sarah, with
Yeah,
your?
so soy is one of the top allergens. We have you take it out, do an elimination diet for 10 days, and then systematically reintroduce it. Many times people are doing all kinds of tofu and other soy ice creams and things like that. If you're doing it, maybe more of a miso and
Tempeh,
a tempeh, exactly.
the
Pea
fermented ones.
pea is inflammatory, so we wouldn't recommend pea. There's a lot of those kind of with the pea milk and things like that too. So
Yeah, so watch out for those. And most of the main protein powders are those. There's also whey, so
right.
milk protein, which a lot of us have to avoid dairy, if we're struggling with infertility. Now, if you're like super healthy, right? If you're like 22, super healthy, or my husband who's super healthy, maybe you can do whey protein. That's great for you. But for a lot of us, we can't do any dairy at all. So then we come to other plant proteins, so like hemp proteins, or other things, and then we come to the animal ones like collagen proteins. So then we have another. I'm a fan of these, but here's our problem. Our problem is that studies have shown huge issues with contamination, heavy metal contamination in these. So we've got lead, we've got other heavy metals, we've got issues with some of the top brands I used to promote, turning out that they should have had a Prop 65 label because they had too much heavy metals like cadmium or lead, and they weren't disclosing it. Like there's just all sorts of issues that make me really icky. So right now there's only one brand I use, and it's a brand. Can I say it, Sarah? Is that okay?
Yeah, perfect. I use the same one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Perfect Supplements, and the reason I love them is because they test every batch for a whole ton of things, but including heavy metals. And then they publish the results for each batch right on their website. So when you're shopping, you can click on the link to see the test results for the latest batches. And I don't know anyone else who has that kind of level of transparency. They're also very affordable. They're they're very affordable. And I think they have two that I like. They have a grass-fed hydrolyzed collagen peptide. That's what I use because it's flavorless. I can't taste it in my smoothie. They also have a plant-based protein that they actually consulted with me about when they were developing for like
cool.
what might be in it. Yeah. And the three that are in it are pumpkin seed protein, hemp seed protein, and sacha inchi seeds. And all of those are safe for fertility. And the sacha inchi actually is like a pro-fertility booster.
Nice.
I do find that one has a bit of a taste. So you have to be like pretty committed to your plant protein. All the plant proteins have a taste. These also have no added fillers. So these have no fake sweeteners. These have no cocoa. These have nothing else. It's just the protein. So that's just something to look for when you're looking at protein powders. They can have like 50 ingredients. And are you sure, all of those are really good for you? And if you want to add other things, add it separate is what I would say.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Do you have anything else on protein? That was a lot.
No, I think that's good. Like some of the nut butters, but if you're running into like a issue, if you're having digestive issues, or maybe many people are intolerant to nuts, then perhaps seeds or the quinoa. Anything else there? If you're intolerant to nuts, if you're doing a AIP, yeah.
Yeah, that can be a little tricky. I know for me, I was really into walnuts. Walnuts were like really good for endometriosis, and that was something I had. So I did a lot of walnuts and did a lot of walnut oil. And actually, let's talk about that. So can we jump into fats?
Yeah, let's go into fats. So, I think, fats are key for fertility. This is what can help you get, stay satiated. The baby's brain is made from fats. Your hormones are from fats. Many times people are, looking at your cholesterol levels and being told it's high, but, we want to make sure they're in the functional reference range. And many times people actually in that functional reference range, which is for optimal health, it's actually fine. It's more the triglycerides we need to look at. So let's talk about some healthy fats you want to add to this smoothie.
Yeah, so it can be kind of easy to make a smoothie and forget about fats, but then you're missing an opportunity to get some really good healthy fats in. And since we need a lot of them, I just don't think you want to miss your opportunity. So you could add, avocado, you could add nuts, seeds, coconut butter. You could use cocoa. We'll talk about your base in a minute, but you could use coconut milk as your base because that comes with fat. You could put a little coconut cream in it. You could use, I don't know how you feel about what's the good coconut stuff? The
coconut manna or coconut?
The oil. Like there's like the specialized MCT oil. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
MCT oil. So there's just, different things you could add to boost your fertility. I mean, avocados are a nice gentle one. I would do avocados and walnuts. Some people add fish oil to their smoothies, liquid fish oil, which is a little bit too intense for me. But I've also had pumpkin seed oil that I would add in. So just, different things to play around with to get your fats in. And then if we jump right there into seed cycling. So one of the cool things you can do with smoothies is you can seed cycle. So you can add different seeds based on where you are in your phases. And I have a guide for this on my website too, Seed Cycling for Fertility. I bet you have a podcast on it, Sarah.
I have a podcast on it. Yes, I do.
So you can just do different seeds based on where you are in your cycle. And what I just do is I add those on top so that it gets to the top. Like I'm using a NutriBullet, and that way it gets to the top of the blender. They blend up really well. And it's also just a nice way to be intentional about your cycle, to be like, this is the phase I'm in. This is the way I'm nourishing my body. And on my blog post, I talk about, it's like pumpkin and flax for the first half and sunflower and sesame for the second half. But I sort of dive into, do we have evidence for these, what the evidence is? But in the end, it's just like kind of a gentle way to honor your cycle, I think, and to potentially balance your hormones. So it's like no harm, and you get extra fat and protein.
Absolutely. Yep. And then the base.
Liquids. Yeah, you need a base. You need something to put this in.
Yeah.
So when I start, so what you want to do a non-dairy alternative, right? If you're going to do a milk, you don't want dairy. You can just do water and add coconut manna or add coconut cream, and it will turn it into a coconut milk that won't have any additives. If that's too much for you, you can buy a coconut milk from the store. Just make sure it's a 0 sugar option, and watch your gums and stuff, like different brands have stuff you don't want. If you, as you get a little more intense, I like to add my herbal infusions as a base. So I usually have like a nettle infusion going on. I have an herbal infusion recipe on my blog. I did red raspberry and nettles and oat straw. There are different ones you could do, and you can drink it separately. I found that when I was doing all these different beverages, I was just like drinking all day. I was like having bone broth, and I was having my herbal infusion. I was having my fertility smoothie, and sometimes I was doing this little lemon ginger smoothie, and it was just a little bit much. So using the herbal infusion as the base for the smoothie made my smoothie more nutrient dense and helped me to cut down on the number of beverages I was drinking every day.
Nice. So like the red clover and things like that. Yeah, we have people do the red clover tea, so you can kind of add some of that into the infusion. Oh,
exactly.
How are you doing? So just walk us through that one, the little infusion. Like what would they do for that?
Yeah. So what I do is I get a big giant mason jar, and I put that's like really, I have on my website, I have the exact size mason jar. I have the exact measurements. And I put like 1 to 2 cups of the dried herb in it, and then fill it with boiling water, let it sit for at least 4 hours or overnight. Then you strain off the herbs, and you've got the liquid, you put it in the fridge, and you drink, a cup to 2 cups every day. And it lasts, like I make a big batch and it lasts for 4 or 5 days or something. If I put it in my smoothie, I probably just put a cup of that in my smoothie and then add water. So it's not like full, I'm not trying to conceive now, but nettles are just like a great nutrient dense food. That's why I like always have a nettles infusion going. But the red raspberry or the red clover, like whatever, is personalized to your fertility needs.
We're gonna link that seed cycling and then the herbal infusion in the show notes, so we'll get that in there for you as well. Let's talk about not oat.
Oh yeah, not oat. So oat milk is so delicious, and it can be so clean, and there are some that are glyphosate like certified clean, although most aren't. Most have a ton of pesticides in them, but they all have sugar because oats have sugar. So like oat milk can be so creamy and so delicious, and you think you're being so healthy, and you're getting like 12 grams of sugar. So like, it's just a total bummer. But you don't want to be, I've seen a lot of recipes floating around the internet that have oat milk as the option. And I just think, why, if you're working this hard, why would you just bomb it with that much sugar from oat milk?
And also if you're super sensitive to gluten, oat milk, cross contamination, I steer clear of it. And I know everyone's like, oat milk, and I do coconut, but I like the coconut manna too, where you can do that and just add the water and you just whip it up and there it is.
That's what I like too. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you like anti-oat even if they're certified gluten-free?
Yeah.
Because of the cross reactivity.
Yeah.
That's intense, man.
It is intense. But like if you have like literally the other day, I'm like, I'm going to try some ghee. because clarified butter, and I don't do dairy, gluten, or corn. And I'm like, okay, I
Right.
haven't tried ghee in a while. And the last time I thought I had a problem with it, I'm like, so over the weekend, I had some ghee. So basically, when you bring it, you need to have it a couple of times that day, and then you wait for 3 days. Sure enough, the next day, I felt like I had arthritis. Like my joints were
Man.
hurting, my elbow, my hip, and my knee.
Oh
And the only
man.
thing I did different was that ghee. So I'm like, damn.
That's what happens to me if I do a little gluten. But when I do a little dairy, I get gut stuff.
Oh, you get
Like
the gut.
by like day 3, it's like, oh,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
unfortunately.
That might not listeners, that might not happen to you. A lot of people are able to heal. Like a lot of people are able to go through, these journeys, and they're able to heal, and they're able to eat stuff again. So it's not necessarily for the rest of your life. For me,
Right.
it's probably for the rest of my life.
Yeah, me too. But it is in tandem working on the gut and healing it, and then most of these foods you can bring back in if you have an issue.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the fertility superfoods. What are we popping in there?
Okay, so this is what you really need to do is you need to tailor the smoothie for your own needs and your own diagnosis, right? So, like the fertility smoothie that I had for me with my high FSH and low AMH and endometriosis may not be the fertility smoothie that you need. So what I have, have on the blog post like a list of a whole bunch of different fertility superfoods you might consider, and like spirulina or maca or acai. There's a whole bunch of other ones. There's ones I talk about that I'm really not a big fan of, like royal jelly or bee pollen and stuff like that. But like they're all over the web.
You
But I sort
know,
of on the blog post why I'm not a big fan of those.
that royal jelly and bee pollen, especially if you've got a bee allergy, which I forgot my husband had that. I guess he was stung by bees. He was sitting on a log when he was like 5 years old in a little rain slicker, and the bees went up his rain slicker, and he was stung like all over. And then I'm like, oh, hey, we're going to try this bee pollen. Here you go. So he took I think he took a little spoonful, went off to work, and half an hour later, he's crawling in. His whole entire torso was bright red. It was going into like a breathing problem. So we're going to Benadryl, like almost killed you with the bee pollen. But yeah, it's not one of our things that we go to.
Problematic. So I'm not a big fan of that. And then also just things, just watch out for things like maca, because like people will be like, oh, just put it in. It tastes great with cocoa or whatever, but it really might not be right for you. So, I mean, ideally you have a functional doctor or a naturopath, someone who's helping you through this. If you don't, because I didn't for a lot of this stuff, you just got to do the research and see if it makes sense for you and your diagnoses. You got to know what your diagnoses are and read about it and really figure out, is this sort of energetically? I knew maca was not energetically right for me. Also, when I tried it, it hurt my stomach. So I knew that wasn't right. Spirulina, however, is super great for me. It's a super dense, nutrient packed food. And I also get my spirulina from Perfect Supplements, because spirulina is a blue-green algae. It can be contaminated with lots of things. So you want to buy from a company that has done rigorous testing on that also.
The spirulina with the teeth. I thought one of them makes your teeth really white. I don't know if it's chlorella or spirulina. I was like looking at that. I'm like,
oh, I don't know. I
make
chlorella.
white teeth. I'm like,
I don't have shiny white teeth, and I eat a lot of spirulina, so I'm thinking it's not.
Okay. I was thinking like, which one is it? Maybe it's I don't know. Anyways, okay. So you've got also. So we're going to link to this fertility smoothie that Anna has. And then you've also got one for male fertility smoothie.
And I've got a male fertility smoothie one, and it's great. My husband loved it. It improved his morphology and count and motility within like a month and a half. And I've had readers who their husbands refused to do any supplements, refused to do any lifestyle changes, but they've done the smoothie and they've drastically improved their sperm health too. So, I mean, really just getting added nutrients, can make, and so that one's, they get to, I'm sorry, ladies, but they get to have a banana. It's heartbreaking. And there's cocoa in it. It just tastes better. Sometimes it's harder to get the men on board with the like super intense green smoothies. But like, anything you can do to improve their nutrition is going to be helpful. And so I've got a link for that, with superfoods that'll help with sperm quality and count. And then also I have a whole lemon and ginger smoothie recipe.
Yeah. What's that?
It's really cool. You put vitamin E in it too, and coconut butter. And it kind of tastes like a mocktail at a fancy restaurant. It turns out kind of frothy. So you blend it for like a minute, and then you strain it. And you put in like raw ginger and raw lemon. And it's like a liver cleanse, and it's has a lot of nutrients for fertility. And I just loved it. There were times in my life, including when I was trying to conceive, when it just tasted so good. Like it's kind of harsh. the fresh lemon and the fresh ginger. It's kind of intense, but I could just tell my body needed it. And that one is like a little intense in the way you make it and stuff. So I have the directions, and that one I didn't make up myself. That one I got from Gabriella Rosa, who got it from some other health
Okay.
practitioner.
Okay.
But I just love it for fertility. So that's on there too. It's just another option. But again, there was a time when I was doing fertility smoothie and the lemon ginger smoothie and the bone broth and the herbal infusion, and it can be a bit much. So, pick your.
Yeah, the liver. Yeah, we like the liver in the morning. Just like the lemon drink is good for the liver, so it can be good. But yeah, you have to, if you're feeling stressed about doing all this stuff, that's sort of counterproductive.
You don't have to do all that. Yeah.
Right. So start somewhere. The whole point is to start, make the changes, and get going. What's your thoughts on a blender? Like all kinds of blenders in the market. Do you have one that you love?
I use a NutriBullet. I don't love it. I love it because of the functionality of it. It also has no BPA or phthalates.
Yeah.
I don't completely trust the. I think it's the best option out there. I have tried an option where you have a mason jar and you attach that to the blender, and it's really cool. But the blenders that exist for that as of now just are not high powered enough. Oh, but you know what there is? My husband bought me as a Christmas present. It's like $80, but it's a stainless steel cup for the NutriBullet. So that is the best option. So it's a stainless steel option. So then you're not having the toxins. And otherwise, if you want to do a full size blender, do a glass blender. Try to avoid the plastic. And if you are doing plastic, just make sure it's BPA and phthalate free. There's a great website, Leah Seghetti's website, Malmovation, where she's actually like tested different blenders and she reviews all the different materials. But again, not a lot of no perfect option for the individual size NutriBullet size one. So I just use a NutriBullet. But there are perfect options if you're willing to do like a full size glass one. And I did for a while. I think I mentioned earlier, when I was working full time, I would blend on Sunday a big, huge batch, like a 5-day batch. And then I would pour it into little individual mason jars and freeze them, and then grab from the freezer and take them to work, just to make it a little bit more efficient. So I wasn't blending each morning and didn't have cleanup each morning.
Yeah. And you do need a high speed blender, because some of those other ones where you're like just picking through all the greens and it's all in there. It's, so you do need.
Yeah. And like when you got the flax seeds, like you want those flax seeds ground up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just chunks. Awesome. Okay, so any final thoughts for us on our fertility smoothie episode?
No, I mean, I would just say like, visualizations were a big part of my journey. So if you're doing a visualization in the morning or evening, consider when you're switching over to this kind of intense smoothie, consider occasionally doing a visualization where you're imagining, like putting all these ingredients in and all the nutrients in that smoothie. And when you're drinking it, just like all those nutrients going to your ovaries, your womb, wherever you need, like soothing your thyroid, whatever it is that, you need in your healing journey. Because I think that being intentional about it makes it more fun than being stressed about it. Being intentional and enjoying it just makes everything better.
So we're going to link to the fertility smoothie recipe, so you can start making this in the morning, and definitely check out Anna's to make a mummy blog. There's tons of information in there, but really this is the best place to start. So thanks again, Anna, for all your work on the blog, and awesome. Thank you.
Thank you much for having me on, Sarah. It was great fun.
Great.